You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com, thechrisvossshow.com. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. We certainly appreciate it, which is kind of interesting because today we'll actually be talking about what some people call the big show, baseball. And we'll be getting into that here in a second. But as always, please refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Give us 5-star reviews we love over on iTunes. Give us that glowing, warm, loving sort of feeling. And I sit at night and read them and cry with a box of tissues and cookies and milk. So there you go. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, and Chris Voss 1 on the tickety-talkety, where those kids are over there doing all those weird dances and stuff. We're trying to be cool, but it's not working because we're not cool anymore, evidently. I don't know. What can I say? We have an amazing author on the show, and for 15 years, we've been bringing you the most amazing people on the show, the brilliant minds, the billionaires, the astronauts, the Pulitzer Prize winners, the newsmakers, all the hottest book authors, and God, who do we forget? White House advisors, everything else, and little old moi, me. I'm just some guy with a mic who's been doing this, and we thought we'd show up every day and do something for fun. We have an amazing gentleman on the show. He has written a multitude of books. Joe Posnanski's on the show with us today. His hottest new book has just come out September 5th, 2023. Why We Love Baseball, a history in 50 moments. And you're going to love this, whether you like baseball or not. Maybe you rediscover baseball if you've fallen away from it. There's been a lot of great changes in the sport as it's gone on. Joe is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of 6 books. I believe this is his 7th, including Paterno and The Secret of Golf, and has been named National Sports Writer of the Year by 5 different organizations. He writes at his website and currently lives in Charlotte, North Carolina with his family. And I should add, this is a New York Times bestseller and a Wall Street Journal bestseller. So he's hitting home runs here. Welcome to the show, Joe. How are you?
I am great. I'm intimidated by the not the intro, but the lead-in. All of those incredible people you've had on this show. This is a big step down from the astronauts and Pulitzer Prize winners.
Oh no, sure. No. I mean, yeah, Wall Street Journal and New York Times bestseller. Come on, man. You're raking it in there, buddy. You're a big star in our books. And so, tell us a 30,000 overview of this book and what's inside.
Yeah, I mean, this book is the weird thing for this one is, and you mentioned this was my 7th book, is I had the title first, and which I never do with my books. I just knew after my last book, which was called The Baseball 100, which was a countdown of the greatest players ever, I just knew that I wanted to write a book about why we love baseball and what it is that still captures our minds about this game that's been around for 150, 200 years. And I really wanted to do that by sharing with the moments of the game, really talking about the different moments of the game, why they capture our imaginations, why they continue to resonate with us. And so that's what this is. It is a countdown of sorts of the 50 greatest moments or 50 most magical moments in baseball history, along with a whole bunch of other moments that I squeeze in throughout the book in various different ways. So it's, I feel like no matter what, nobody's going to come to me and say, hey, man, I didn't get my money's worth out of this book, because it promises 50 moments, but there are actually 108 moments in here.
Oh, are there really?
Double the price. Yeah.
Double the delivery.
Yeah, exactly. All over the place. But there are funny moments and silly moments, but also, of course, incredibly inspiring moments and emotional things. And that's, to me, what it is that I think we love about baseball, is it really captures us in so many different ways. And so I wanted to try to do that, to tell that story through all of these incredible moments of the game.
There you go. So basically, it's a 2-for-1 where you buy the book for 50 moments and you get 108 or something.
Yeah, no.
Maybe that should have been the byline,
I mean,
a 2-for-1 on
what I wanted to put in there. Yeah, history of 50 moments, and below it, like, but there's so much more, like bonus material in here, So
there you go. Why did you feel like these moments were, and how did you pick them? Were the most important, and are you gonna have people coming up to you and go, hey, you forgot that one time at the one thing?
Oh, I've had that happen already. Yeah, I've definitely had people say, oh, where was my moment?
Starting an argument.
Exactly, which is fun, which is another part of the fun. This was really cool to me because none of these moments, what I was thinking about when I picked the moments was not, is this the most important moment or is this the most dramatic moment? All I was thinking of is this why we love baseball. That was my entire thought process. So every single moment came in. So there's a very famous moment which you might remember. I mean, I don't know how famous it is, but there is a great moment of a few years ago where the New York Mets pitcher Bartolo Colon hit a home run. And Bartolo was very famously a terrible hitter. He was he was listed at something like 245, which I'm sure he was at some point in his life, but was not when he hit the home run. And it took him so long to run around the bases that literally it took him longer. There's another very famous moment about Kirk Gibson hitting the home run that won a World Series game on one leg. Essentially, he wasn't supposed to play, and he hit the home run on one leg. It took Bartolo Colon, a fully healthy Bartolo Colon, longer to run around the bases than it took Kirk Gibson on one leg. And that moment is absolutely in my book. It's absolutely, because it's why we love baseball. And if it was the 100 most important moments or the 100 most dramatic or anything inspirational, most awesome, that moment doesn't go in there. But when you're guided by this principle of like what really this is about is, does this moment explain in some way why I love baseball? And by I mean anybody. Then it's in here. So a ball hitting Jose Canseco on the head and bouncing over the fence for a home run, that's in here, that's in here. And so people come up to me all the time and go, hey, how could you leave out, this moment from the 1967 World Series? And I'm like, because the ball hit Jose Canseco in the head and bounced over the fence for a home run, right? So, I mean, it really, that was my favorite part. I tell people all the time that in many ways, this was the most personal book that I've written since my first book. And it's personal in ways that are hard to describe, but the main thing is every single moment I thought about with this book revolves around why we love baseball.
There you go. And if anybody says you missed any moments, just say that's in book 2. That's the next one.
Exactly. And
we'll get to it.
We've got several more coming. I mean, come on.
Just keep going. Well, just have everyone contribute to the book that way, and you don't have to do the research or anything. But
exactly.
So tell us a little bit about your history and how did you grow up and how did you fall in love with baseball?
So I grew up in Cleveland, and I am a first generation American. My parents moved to the United States just a couple of years before I was born, and my father, and I try to explain this all the time, and I think people whose parents or grandparents came to this country really relate to this. My father, it was very important for my father to raise his sons as Americans. That was just very important to him. He wanted to be an American, and he wanted his sons to be Americans. I mean, just my father is one of those people who his favorite holiday is Thanksgiving, and on 4th of July, he loves driving around and seeing all the fireworks like in people's backyards. I mean, he is as American as they come with this incredibly thick accent, right? And for him, raising a son as an American meant teaching him baseball. And of course, my father didn't grow up with baseball. He didn't know the game at all, but he learned it. He learned baseball so that he could teach his son how to play, teach him about some of the great players of the game. So I grew up with this sort of this sense that baseball meant something even more than just the game. I loved it. I loved playing baseball. I loved watching it. I loved going to the games, on the rare times that we could go. My father worked in a factory, so he would come home from the factory and we'd play catch, and it felt like important somehow. So I grew up a big sports fan across the board. I'm writing a football book now. I love football. I grew up with it, and basketball and hockey and all the others. But there was something special about baseball because I think of its connection to what America is,
Mm-hmm. And I think, isn't the game kind of it seems like it's a little bit more about personalities because there's time to watch the personalities, and there's time to it's more than just football's a very fast game, basketball's very fast game,
very fast,
and I'm sure there's lots of great classic moments in there, but most of it's probably on the field. You might catch some, I don't know, Tom Brady yelling at somebody, on the sideline or something. But even then, I don't think that really stands out as all that memorable. He did it quite often, actually.
Sure he did.
but I mean, it doesn't seem like one of those things. But there's something about baseball where it's a slow enough game where, and they've done stuff to speed it up, but it's a slow enough game where it's kind of the personalities, I think, maybe are more impacted. Watching, the coach go out and yell at work it out on the mound and the pitcher and yell at the umpires, and there's a whole lot bigger dynamic and chess game that's going on there.
I totally agree with you, and I love that you're saying that, because this was, as I was thinking about this book and how to write it, these are exactly the thoughts I was having. I think it is a much slower game, and it's a much slower game in the sense of when you're in the stands. You have time to talk to your friends. You have time to talk to people, strangers who are around you. You have time to reminisce about things that you've seen before. You look at this player and go, "Oh, this player kind of reminds me of this player that I grew up watching," or this day reminds me of a game that I saw 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 50 years ago, right? And there isn't that time in football. There isn't. You're so focused, right, on the next play. It's like, oh my gosh, we're down 3, and this, like, nothing else matters except for what you're there right now. But in baseball, you can really stretch out and feel all of these different things. And you're right about the personalities. What I have found, being a longtime sports writer, I wrote for newspapers for many years, and of course wrote about the baseball team, wrote about the football team, wrote about the basketball team. And what you find is in baseball, fans, and this is very, very generally speaking, but in a general sense, fans really care about the backgrounds of the players. I mean, they really want to know their story. How did this person grow up? How did this person learn to love baseball? Like what is their, what do they care about? This. And in football, it's significantly less so. I mean, they're behind helmets. There's so many of them on the field. And, sometimes I would say, I'm trying to tell the story of how some football player grew up, and I would get people who would respond like, I don't care. All I care about is like that they deliver on Sundays. I mean, that was the kind of response I would get. And so I think baseball is different, and exactly the ways that you're talking about.
There you go. And maybe it's more endeared to people with baseball, growing up, because you can play kind of baseball and catch with your dad, but it's a little harder to play football with your dad. I mean, especially if he tries to talk to you when you're 12,
Yeah. I mean, there is certainly a family element to football. Yeah. And the family element that I keep running across is, we've had Giants season tickets for 50 years, right? My grandfather passed them along to my father, passed them on to me, my mother, whatever. So I mean, there is that. But in baseball, it's definitely like when I was writing the Baseball 100 about all of these great players, I couldn't believe how many of them kind of learned the game from their dad, learned their game from their, and it's true in football too. But a lot of times in football, it's true because their dad happened to be the high school coach, right? Like there's a different feeling of like a lot of times, I learned the game from my dad because my dad was teaching everybody, rather than sort of the way like my dad taught me baseball. My dad was, he didn't know how to play baseball. Like he had taught himself how to play baseball, but he still taught me because, that's sort of the way it was. So I think that there is a family element, but it's really pronounced in baseball, I think, unlike other sports.
I can really see that with your book. That gave me the epiphany about how, there's a difference to the game. I grew up a Dodgers fan as a kid, back in those sort of days, and Steve Garvey. And I mean, you watch the game, and watching Thomas sort of go out and yell at somebody or do whatever he's doing, like he doesn't play the game. I mean, he doesn't play the game as a player, so you're not, but if you're watching a football game, maybe a lot of people focus on Bill Belichick with his little Darth Vader thing going on,
sure,
or sometimes they'll talk about the coaches a little bit, but you're really not that much into whatever, and the coach isn't running on the field. I don't think you can on the NFL.
You can't. No. They'll absolutely throw a flag on you. There's some really cool things that I think about all the time with baseball. There are these various sort of on the field little sort of plays that happen. Like a pitcher is going to get pulled out of a game. It doesn't just happen the way it does in football, where they just run off the field.
Yeah.
The manager goes out, takes the ball away from them, points to the bullpen. The bullpen has to, that guy runs in. Everybody's watching. You take a pause for that guy to warm up. It's like a whole thing. It's like it's a whole dramatic thing, and I think that adds like some sort of like I don't know, resonance to the moment.
Yeah.
In football, in and out. Basketball, you just sit at the scorer's table and wait for them to call your name, and then you're in the game. I mean, there's not the same level of like interaction, I think, between the fans and the moments. But football, of course, has so many other charms that are, like nothing is more fun than watching them yank the stupid chains out to tell you whether it's a first down or not, like that. So, I mean, it has its own things, but it's not, baseball has so many more. And I just think that's because it's so much older a game, I think.
There you go. And I mean, I'm a Raiders fan, so I'm a 70s sort of kid. So I used to be about knocking people's teeth out and hurting them. But sadly, they changed that. But I mean, still, you look for the great plays. But yeah, if you blink in NFL, you miss the play.
That's right.
And even when I sit and watch it on TV, I'll be maybe working, and if I look aside from a side, I'm like, I'll miss some great play. Oh my God, damn. But yeah, there's so much anticipation. I think maybe anticipation is a great word for it, and the art of the game, the chess play of the game of throwing the balls, throwing the strikes. It's the mano a mano sort of meet me on the that Wild West thing, the meet me at sunset, and we're gonna go guns ablaze and one-on-one, and it's kind of that face off between those two individuals on the mound and on the plate. And maybe that's really an aspect that makes it different and unique, and have a little bit more of that anticipation and the play end of it, where you're like, what's he going to do? I don't know. What were some moments you can tease out in the books that maybe surprised you, or maybe some of your favorite tidbits?
There are a bunch of them that I really loved. And what you talk about is 100% right in the sense of these duels. I've got a whole section in the book called 5 Great Duels, where I talk about, very specific, because baseball it's a team game, but it's an individual game more than, like, they blend that individual and team game much more than any other sport. I mean, in football, ultimate team game, nobody can do anything by themselves. I mean, you can't even, somebody's got to snap the ball to you to even get the play started, right? So, and in basketball, you can do a little bit more one-on-one stuff, but so much of it is still, it's so much about a team. And in baseball, it's a team game, but when you step up to the plate, Derek Jeter talks about this. When you step up to the plate, it's just you and me. That's it. I mean, there are fielders out there to help you as a pitcher, but it's just you and me, and it's your brain and your pitches and your strategy against my brain and my strategy and my sense of what's going to happen. So I write about great duels. Some of those are one of my all-time favorite duels is the one between Reggie Jackson and Bob Welch in the 1977 World Series, 78 World Series, I think, because it was the year after he hit the 3 home runs, where he faced this young, Bob Welch, who would later on, win a Cy Young and become a very good pitcher. But at that stage, he was just a kid, just out of the minor leagues. Reggie was already this larger than life figure. They face each other, and it was like at sunset, the way the television cameras sort of covered it, like back to his brow. He's sweating, and then to Reggie, kind of with that big, like, I got you now moment. I mean, there's a wonderful, wonderful like interplay between the two, which I think is a great, great part of baseball. So I write about great duels like that. There are very famous moments in here. I think hopefully all of the like truly, truly famous moments, Babe Ruth hitting his called shot home run where he pointed to center field, or did he? Nobody, the argument goes on. The shot heard around the world, the 1951 Giants, on the last day, having been given up for dead, coming back and hitting the home run that Bobby Thompson hitting the home run that won, that sent them to the World Series. And Kirk Gibson's home run we already mentioned. Willie Mays' great over-the-shoulder catch. And so, like, there are all of these great, famous moments in here. And what I tried to do with those moments is find something different about them, because those are very famous and people will know a lot about them. And I want to be able to tell them, like the shot heard around the world, I want to be able to tell them about the first base coach who if you watch the film of it, he's going absolutely crazy. It's actually, once you notice him, it's like you'll never forget it, because he's just losing his mind. And he had a great story. So I was able to tell his story. So for famous moments like that, I wanted to do that. But then there are a lot of moments in here that nobody knows, or very, very few people
really
know. Yeah. I mean, moments like the story of Chelsea Baker, who is a young, she's still a young woman, but she was a girl, 11 years old, who threw 2 perfect games in Little League.
Oh, wow.
And super cool story, because her story is that when she was 6 years old, she joined her Little League team. She was the only girl on the team. And she begged the coach to teach her how to throw a knuckleball. And the coach kind of kept saying, no, but she was persistent. And the coach taught her how to throw a knuckleball. And that coach was Joe Niekro, who won more than 200 games in the major leagues with his knuckleball. Yeah, and brother of Phil Niekro, one of the, maybe the greatest knuckleball pitcher ever. And he taught her the knuckleball, and she threw 2 perfect games throwing that knuckleball against 11-year-olds who had no idea what was coming. And so stories like that, there are a bunch of those in this book that are, was just a joy for me. Like, this is I would say, you're always excited for a book to come out, but this was different. When this book, for the weeks leading up to the book coming out, I mean, I was just like so anxious and excited. I just wanted people to see some of these cool little moments that I had discovered or found along the way that I didn't know about as a pretty big baseball fan. And so I was really excited to sort of share those moments with people.
There you go. And kind of endear people back to the game. I mean, remind people of how great this game. I mean, this game at one time was, American as they come. Apple pie and, I don't know, Coca-Cola and
Chevrolet,
and that, and somewhere it got lost in all the things. I grew up loving the game. Reggie Jackson was my second favorite player, next to Steve Garvey, and I'm still a Dodgers fan. But I do miss Tom Minnesota. It was so fun to watch.
Oh, sure, just a blast. I'll tell you who you have to miss. You have to miss Vin Scully. There's a wonderful. I think a wonderful. One of my favorite chapters in the book is the story not only of Sandy Koufax throwing his perfect game, but of Vin Scully calling that game, announcing that game from the booth. I believe it to be the greatest announcer call in the history of sports. And I always used to be so jealous of people who grew up Dodger fans because they would listen to Vin Scully. I only got to hear him when he was on the broadcast on Saturdays.
He was iconic.
But yeah, iconic. Just every night getting to hear Vin.
Lived a long time too.
Oh gosh, yeah,
it's awesome. I mean, some of the baseball announcers have always been iconic. Was there? I'm trying to think of a few that I can hear their voices in my head.
Oh, Jack Buck for sure. I mean, guys like that, like Ernie Harwell in Detroit. Everybody had one. Every town seemed to have like this iconic announcer, and that's different than football too. I mean, there are great football announcers. You're a Raiders fan, so you know Bill King. Who was obviously one of the all-time greats. Yeah. But mostly it's baseball announcers. And I think that also speaks to what you're saying, which is football is very, very, I mean, you can listen to it on the radio because if you can't watch it on TV, but it's a visual game. And you really, it's frustrating to listen to the radio because they're like, what a great catch. And you're like, well, what did that catch look like? I want to know, right? But baseball is like just as good on the radio in a different way than it is, because it sparks your imagination and you get stories. And so yeah, there are tremendous iconic announcers in baseball.
And there's that anticipation. He's stepping up to the bat and the play.
Yes.
The pitcher is winding up.
Yes.
You have that anticipation where in football, it's like, you threw the damn thing. I think I caught it. He's running down the field. And you're just
exactly right. Okay. Well, in football, it's the play, which you have to rush through. And to me, it's very funny that, I mean, I think Al Michaels is probably the greatest football announcer on TV, but I love Pat Summerall. And Pat Summerall's calls were always like Montana, Rice, touchdown. That's it. Like there was no description, because you don't need it. You don't need it in football. But in baseball, the way Vin would be poetic and the way Jack Buck would just leave his heart out there, and Harry Carey, of course, and
Harry Carey. That's
some of the other greats. I mean, it is, it's wonderful.
I still miss Madden in NFL, even though Madden would just say the most obvious shit that
the funny thing is, it's so true. It's so true. At the end, he'd be like, "That's a flag, which means that's a penalty." Like he would do that, but I think it's only because he was so transformational when he started.
Yeah.
Like there had never been anybody like him. But then when you hear him for 30 years, I mean, like there's only so much that any of us can say without repeating ourselves. So after a while, it started to get a little repetitive. But he's for color commentators. Not only is he the best there's ever been, nobody's even close.
Yeah, I miss him. I miss hearing him. It was like I kind of lost a little bit from the NFL. It started to fade with me after he left because there was just something lovable about his stuff. Maybe I'm just a Raiders fan. I don't know, but a diehard Raiders fan from the '70s and Ken Stabler and all that stuff.
Oh, so gosh, it was just incredible.
I'm old.
No, but that's an incredible thing. I've actually, I'm trying to do this football book, and I'm thinking about doing it in ways that are similar to the baseball book, which would mean including all of these other bonus moments. And I was like, I think I'm going to have a category just for the Raiders. I think because there were so many Ken Stabler moment, the Holy Roller and the Post and the Sea of Hands and all these other plays that the Raiders were, famously did. But yeah, I mean, not to turn this around on you, but that kind of had to break your heart when they went to Las Vegas. No?
Oh yeah. No, hold on. I live in Las Vegas.
Oh, so it was good.
No, I was very happy. I've hated that stupid Oakland field because I've been to the games and I've watched, people hurt and trip themselves in that stupid dirt.
Oh yeah.
And I've been angry about that for years. So yeah, when they moved to Vegas, I was actually happy because I live in Vegas. And I'm like, you guys moved to where I live.
That's
way
great.
To go.
I saw a bunch of games in in Oakland because I was the columnist in Kansas City for years. And so I saw a bunch of games and I had beer thrown on me all over the time. I mean, just wear a suit to a football game in Oakland and good luck. That's not going to work.
And you don't go on 49ers versus Oakland.
Oh gosh.
It's like a prison yard. It's when you go there that for the thing. But back to baseball. So this is awesome, and I think it will endear people to the game and remind people why it's so great. In fact, you give me an epiphany as to really, what the real difference is between there and why it's valued so much and why it's kind of connects us. I always love that old line from Billy Crystal, and I'll probably butcher it here, but something about how he could never talk to his dad. I think it's from a movie. And he's like, I can never talk to my dad, but the one thing we could always talk about was baseball.
Yeah, from City Slickers.
Yeah, there you go.
It's so true. Well, what I got back, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, from the Baseball 100, were all of these people telling me all these stories, right? Mm-hmm. And in the early stage of this book, that's been even more true. And it's incredibly. I mean, it just makes my heart glow to think about all of these people who come up to me who will say, you know what, I wasn't a big baseball fan. I used to be a huge baseball fan, then I kind of lost interest. I've read your book, and it's kind of brought me back to baseball. Or even cooler, I mean, not that it can be a whole lot cooler than that. Even cooler, they'd be like, I kind of lost touch with baseball, but my daughter read your book, and,
oh, wow.
And now we talk about baseball all the time, and that's awesome. I mean, to me, that's sort of what the game is and should be. And so, yeah, I mean, look, I fully understand people who have sort of moved on from the game, but there are a lot of people who loved it when they were growing up. And if you love it when you're growing up, there's always a little part of you that sort of stays a baseball fan, I think.
Yeah, I've been loving the new. Is it called the hitbox? What is it called? Where they show where the ball is.
Oh, I love it. Yeah,
then you can sit there and you can be like, umpire got it wrong, because you used to fight about stuff. I remember back when the NFL was having an issue. You mentioned the young daughter who got interested in the game. Women love the background, the personalities, the things, yes. And of course men do too, because we'd be like, this guy came up from the juniors and leagues and stuff. And I remember when the NFL they made some changes or did some of their announcers to try and drum that sort of business up of getting women interested in football too, and he's married to so-and-so and, right. That sort of story thing. But yeah, reminding us of the greatness of the game and how long it's been around and bringing people back to it and remind people, hey, yeah, I should go watch. You reminded me, I need to go watch more baseball games and stuff and see how the Dodgers doing. I certainly like the Dodgers now that they got rid of that old owner guy who was charging $50 for hot dogs and you would
still owns the parking lot. Yeah,
does he really?
Oh yeah, still owns the parking lot.
I remember, son of a gun, I went years ago and it was when he still owned it, and I went. It was like $50 or something, or $75 to park. I'm like, what the hell? I bought the tickets and I got to buy the parking. I'm like, what the hell is this? And then the hot dogs were like, I had to mortgage my house for a hot dog and a drink. But he still owns the parking lot. Darn it. But yeah, good stuff. Final thoughts as we go out and pitch out to the audience on the book.
Yeah, I mean, look, I loved the book. Has been such an incredible experience already. And when you write a baseball book, any kind of sports book, I don't think you expect it to sort of get into the sort of pop culture world the way that this book has. And so it's something I'm incredibly honored by and surprised by and all of that. But it's been so cool for me to see people reconnect with baseball, see people who have always connected with baseball, people who have new connections to baseball, kids that have come up to me, and there have been a lot of young kids who have come up to me about this book. And all of that is just, I mean, it blows my mind, honestly. You write a book and you have hopes, obviously. But you don't necessarily think, oh, this is going to be, a bestseller, and this is going to, stay on the list for weeks, and it's going to do this. I mean, none of those things come to mind when you're writing a baseball book. But it does show, I think, the strength of baseball fanhood. I think there are a lot of people who just love the game and want something happy. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, it's this book is nothing but, there's no controversy in it. Other than people who are going to argue with me about what should have been in there. But it's nothing but happy. I mean, that's what it is. There's no politics. There's no any sense of anger about the country. It's just happy baseball stories, and I think that's maybe why it's doing so well. I think that's maybe why people are really relating to it, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
There you go. It's resonating with a lot of people and endearing them and reminding of their memories, like we've been talking here about memories that I haven't talked about for a long time and thought about, and might go watch some old games of Tommy Lasorda.
There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely. Go watch Tommy Lasorda beat up the Philly Fanatic again. Like that was one of my favorite little moments. The Fanatic was kind of making fun of him, and he wasn't having it. Tommy Lasorda was.
I think I remember that vaguely. I got to go pull that
up. It's on YouTube. Just pop it on YouTube. Just like, there you go. Tommy Lasorda and Philly Fanatic, and it'll pop up.
He was such a character. So thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, Joe. Thank you very much, and it's been fun.
Absolutely. Thank you.
There you go. Folks, order up the book wherever fine books are sold. You can find it. It's out now, but stay away from those alleyway bookstores. You might get mugged. The book is called Why We Love Baseball, A History in 50 Moments, September 5th, 2023. And remember, we're coming into the holidays. Might be a great gift to give to your father for Christmas and all that good stuff. You can sit and reminisce about the past. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe, everyone. And we'll see you guys next time. And that should have us out, Joe.